2 years after humanity's silent departure from the Galactic Council, President Hanul Seo stood before the Assembly of Free Worlds, looking out at representatives from 34 different species. The assembly hall was smaller than the old council chamber, but every delegate present had an equal voice and vote. Today marks the second anniversary of our departure from a system that valued efficiency over life, Hanul began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. In those 2 years, we have proven that there is another way. Trade Minister Jae-hyun Moon presented the economic report that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Without the stranglehold of Vorthak shipping monopolies and council favoritism toward larger species, smaller civilizations had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. Interstellar trade within the alliance has increased by 300%, Jae-hyun announced. Innovation indexes are at record highs as species share technology freely, instead of hoarding it for political advantage. The Gilhai had become master diplomats, their natural empathy making them perfect mediators for disputes between very different species. The Kretar, whose homeworld had been scheduled for resource optimization, now led the alliance's environmental restoration efforts. Their success had not gone unnoticed in the old Galaxy Communications Officer Dahai no monitored the steady stream of requests arriving from Galactic Council space. Every day brought new messages from species seeking to join the alliance, and every message told the same story. The old system was collapsing. Another formal withdrawal notification, Dahai reported during the morning briefing. The Saurian Collective is the latest to leave the Galactic Council. That brings membership down to 19 species. Former Admiral So-Young Kim, now serving as Alliance Defense Coordinator, reviewed the military situation in the old galaxy. The Vorthak hegemony was fighting 3 different rebellions, simultaneously while trying to maintain control over 12 star systems. Without their previous technological advantages, their orbital platforms are completely offline now, she reported. Ground forces are stretched too thin to maintain effective control. Intelligence suggests they're considering a negotiated withdrawal from at least 6 systems. The irony was not lost on anyone. The Vorthak had voted for efficiency protocols to eliminate surplus populations, and now faced the reality that many of those populations had been essential to their empires. Function. Dr. Sung-Ho Bae had established the Alliance Research Institute, where scientists from dozens of species worked together without the restrictive protocols that had limited innovation in the old council. Their first major breakthrough had been a cure for the genetic plague that was decimating the Nestcree. Survivors. Collaborative. Research produces results faster than competitive research, he explained to a group of visiting diplomats. When species share knowledge freely, everyone benefits. The Institute had already made advances in medicine, agriculture, and environmental restoration that exceeded anything achieved during humanity's 60 years in the Galactic Council. Captain Yuri Shin led another humanitarian mission into the old galaxy, this time to evacuate survivors from the planet Mordan 7. The Vorthak efficiency protocols had evolved beyond their original scope, now targeting any species that showed signs of potential resistance. Rescue Fleet Alpha to Mordan 7, she broadcast as her ships approached the besieged world. We are here to provide sanctuary to any beings seeking refuge. No political conditions apply. The response overwhelmed her ship's capacity. Millions of beings from 7 different species had gathered at the designated evacuation points, all hoping for passage to Alliance space. President Hanul Seo had authorized unlimited refugee support. Every life has value, she had declared. We have the resources to help, and we have the moral obligation to use them. New Geneva Station had expanded into a massive orbital complex spanning hundreds of kilometers. What had started as a single city-sized station now housed over 5 million refugees from the old galaxy, all contributing their skills and knowledge to the growing alliance. Director Noel Wang oversaw the construction of specialized habitats for species with unique environmental needs. The aquatic Gilhai had their oceanic domes. The crystalline Veltari had their mineral gardens, and the energy-based Luminari had their plasma chambers. Diversity makes us stronger, she explained to her engineering teams. Every species brings different perspectives and capabilities. Former Colonel Yanwu Bayek commanded joint military exercises between alliance forces, but their training focused on protection and disaster relief rather than conquest. The Alliance military existed to defend the weak, not enable the strong. We train to save lives, not take them, he told his mixed species training units. Our weapons are tools of last resort, used only when all other options have been exhausted. The contrast with Galactic Council military doctrine was stark. Where the Council had maintained order through force and intimidation, the Alliance built cooperation through mutual benefit and shared values. Ambassador Won-Jin Kim received the most desperate message yet from the remnants of the Galactic Council. Speaker Veltanen himself had transmitted a formal request for negotiations, offering unprecedented concessions in exchange for human technical assistance. They're willing to suspend the efficiency protocols, Won-Jin reported to the Alliance Council. They offer full voting rights for all member species, technology sharing agreements, and reparations for affected populations. The offer was tempting, but President Hanul Seo's response was immediate. Too little, too late. They're not offering to abandon genocide because it's wrong. They're offering to pause it because it's inconvenient. The Alliance response was polite but firm. Demonstrate genuine change through actions, not words. End all forced relocations, provide full restoration for displaced populations, and establish binding humanitarian protections that couldn't be overturned by majority vote. The Galactic Council's reply came 3 weeks later, a rejection of all Alliance demands as unrealistic and politically impossible. Trade Commissioner Yoon-ha Kwon presented the final economic analysis of the galactic situation. They've lost 43% of their industrial capacity and 67% of their shipping network. Food production is down 38%. Medical supplies are critically short on 12 worlds. And their response? Asked Hanul. They're blaming the crisis on terrorist disruption by hostile separatist movements. The Alliance leadership received that news with sad resignation. The old council would rather blame their victims than acknowledge their mistakes. Dr. Hai Wan-yoon published the Alliance Charter in 23 languages, broadcasting it across both galaxies. Its core principle was simple enough for any species to understand. The measure of civilization is how it treats its most vulnerable members. The Charter included specific protections for refugee populations, minority species, and individuals with disabilities. It banned forced relocations, genetic discrimination, and the use of efficiency as justification for eliminating any population. Supreme Admiral Mi Young Chu watched from the observation deck of New Geneva Station as ships from 12 different species arrived for the quarterly Alliance Assembly. Each ship carried delegates who had chosen dignity over convenience, cooperation over domination. The old galaxy is watching us, she told President Hanul Seo as they observed the arriving delegations. Every success we achieve makes their failures more obvious. Intelligence reports indicated that resistance movements in Galactic Council space were using Alliance principles as inspiration for their own struggles. The idea that civilizations could be judged by how they treated their weakest members was spreading, despite Council efforts to suppress it. Director Sang-min Ko established the Alliance Educational Exchange, where young beings from all member species learned together in integrated schools. The first generation of Alliance citizens would grow up seeing diversity as normal and cooperation as natural. They'll never understand the hatred that divided the old galaxy, he explained to visiting educators. To them, working together across species lines will be as natural as breathing. The long-term implications were staggering. An entire generation raised with Alliance values would be immune to the tribal thinking that had made the efficiency protocols possible. As the second anniversary celebration concluded, President Hanul Seo stood once again at the observation deck, watching the Milky Way turn slowly in the distance. Somewhere in those spiral arms, the Galactic Council continued its sessions in increasingly empty chambers. Recent intelligence suggested that Vorthak delegates now outnumbered all other species combined in council sessions. They had achieved their efficiency goals through a different method than intended, by driving away everyone who disagreed with them. Do you think they'll ever learn? Asked Trade Minister Ja Hyun-moon, joining Hanul at the observation window. Some will, Hanul replied. The Alteran Republic sent another delegation last week. The Crystalline Authority is considering formal alliance membership. Even some individual Vorthak colonies are requesting refugee status. Change was coming to the old galaxy, but slowly and at great cost. Every day of delay meant more lives lost to efficiency protocols, more species driven to extinction. 3 weeks after humanity's silent departure, economic analyst Junsik Rowe submitted his preliminary report from the new human settlement beyond the galactic rim. The numbers told a story that surprised even him, and he had helped plan the evacuation. "The cascade failures are exceeding our worst-case projections," he told Trade Commissioner Yun-Ha Kwan during their morning briefing. "We knew the aliens depended on human technology, but the actual extent is staggering." The Zephyrian Banking Consortium had been the first to realize something was wrong. Their entire financial network ran on quantum computers designed and maintained by human engineers. When those computers began experiencing random errors, they initially blamed solar flare interference. It took them 6 days to discover that every human-built quantum processor in their network was degrading simultaneously. By then, 3 star systems had lost access to their financial accounts, and interstellar commerce was grinding to a halt. Captain Yuri Shin monitored the emergency broadcasts from her position at the edge of human space. The panic in alien voices was becoming more obvious each day as critical systems failed across the galaxy. "Status report from the Alteran Republic," her communications officer announced. "They're requesting immediate technical assistance. Their orbital defense platforms are offline." Yuri shook her head sadly. The Altarians were among the few species that had voted against the Vorthak efficiency protocol, but they had still chosen to remain in a system that tolerated genocide. Former Ambassador Tae-hyun Go prepared humanity's first and only message to the Galactic Council from his new office in New Geneva Station. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, a completely self-sufficient city floating in the void between galaxies. "Keep it brief and diplomatic," advised Director Sumi Lee. "We want to make our position clear without seeming vindictive." Tae-hyun nodded as he activated the long-range transmitter. The message would take weeks to reach the Galactic Council, but it would be worth the wait. "To the honorable members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice calm and measured, "humanity bears no ill will toward any member species. We simply choose to invest our efforts in relationships based on mutual respect and the fundamental dignity of all sapient life. We wish you success in your future endeavors." The message was transmitted on all diplomatic frequencies and included coordinates for a neutral meeting point, should any species wish to establish new relationships based on different principles. On the old council station, chaos was spreading as more systems failed each day. The gravity generators fluctuated randomly. The atmospheric processors couldn't maintain proper oxygen levels. The quantum computers that managed traffic control were producing increasingly erratic results. Councillor Veltanan called emergency session after emergency session, but the problems kept multiplying faster than they could be addressed. The Vorthak engineers, supposedly the most advanced in the galaxy, couldn't even identify what was causing the failures. The humans sabotaged everything, accused Delegate Zexathera from the hegemony of Vorthak. "This is an act of war." The humans withdrew peacefully, countered Delegate Mordic from the Alteran Republic. "If our systems are failing, perhaps we should have treated our most reliable engineers with more respect." Admiral Boram Choi reviewed intelligence reports from automated monitoring stations humanity had left behind. The political situation in the galaxy was deteriorating as rapidly as the technology. The Vorthak hegemony, already overextended from their territorial expansion, was facing their first rebellion in 3 centuries. Without human logistics networks to move supplies and human-maintained weapons to suppress resistance, their iron grip on 12-star systems was weakening. "The irony is beautiful," commented Captain Wu Jin Lim as he read the latest reports. "They voted to eliminate inefficient populations, and now they're discovering that those populations included the technicians who kept their empire running." The rebellion had started on Vorthak Prime itself when the orbital weapons platforms went offline. The platforms had been built by Vorthak engineers, but maintained by human technical staff who understood the subtle interactions between different systems. Without that expertise, the platforms had become expensive metal sculptures orbiting uselessly above the planet. Dr. Haiwan Yun established the first contact with species seeking alternatives to the Galactic Council. The Remnant Alliance, 17 species that had refused to join the Council due to its increasingly authoritarian Tendencies sent a diplomatic mission to the coordinates humanity had provided. We've been waiting for someone to show that there was another way, explained Ambassador Creedle of the Madoc Confederation. Your departure has given hope to species that believed resistance was futile. The Madoc were among the species originally targeted for Vorthak expansion. Only their remote location and fierce military tradition had kept them independent. Now they saw humanity as potential allies in building something better. Communications Officer Da Hai No monitored the flood of messages arriving at the human communication relays. Dozens of species were requesting information about the human withdrawal. Some were angry, demanding that humanity return to fulfill their galactic obligations. Others were curious about the possibility of joining whatever humanity was building. The Gilhai have sent another message. Dahai reported to the Council of Human Leaders. They're asking for asylum. The Vorthak efficiency protocols have begun. President Hanul Seo, who had replaced Jay Minot when the evacuation was complete, didn't hesitate. Send coordinates for the nearest human rescue ships. We'll provide full refugee support. The Gilhai weren't the only species facing extinction. The efficiency protocols had been expanded to include any species deemed economically non-viable by Vorthak standards. 6 different civilizations were now facing systematic elimination. Captain Minho Jung led the first humanitarian mission back into galactic space. His convoy of hospital ships and transports was painted with the symbols of the newly formed alliance of free worlds, humanity's answer to the Galactic Council. This is Rescue 1 to Gilhai Command, he broadcast, as his ships approached their besieged homeworld. We're here to evacuate any beings who wish to leave. No political conditions, no territorial demands, just sanctuary. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of thousands of Gilhai, along with refugees from other targeted species, desperately sought passage to human space. Director Noel Wang oversaw the construction of New Geneva Station's expansion. What had started as a single city-sized station was rapidly growing into a massive orbital complex capable of housing millions of refugees. We're going to need more manufacturing capacity, she told her engineering teams. At current rates, we'll have 2 million refugees within 6 months. The refugees brought more than just people. They brought knowledge, skills and technologies that had been suppressed or ignored by the Galactic Council. The Gilhai's biotechnology, the MDOC's defensive systems, the Kretar's environmental restoration techniques. Former Colonel Yanwu Beck established joint training programs between human military forces and refugee species. But unlike the Galactic Council's military, these forces trained for protection and humanitarian missions rather than conquest. Every species brings something valuable, he explained to his mixed species training units. Our job is to protect that diversity, not homogenize it. The economic data continued to paint a devastating picture of galactic civilization. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were collapsing as human shipping companies vanished overnight. Manufacturing centers couldn't maintain production without human-designed automation systems. Food shortages appeared on worlds that had forgotten they weren't self-sufficient. The agricultural techniques that had ended famine on 6 worlds had been developed primarily by human scientists working with local species and economic analyst Junsik Ro compiled the final damage assessment 6 weeks after the human departure. Total economic impact: 67% reduction in interstellar trade, 41% drop in industrial production, and complete collapse of the galactic financial network. How long before recovery? Asked Trade Commissioner Yunha Kwan. At their current rate, assuming they can reverse engineer or replace all human technology. Conservative estimate, 50 years. More likely, never given their political instability. The Galactic Council was hemorrhaging members. The Alteran Republic had formally withdrawn, taking their advanced shield technology with them. The Crystalline Authority had declared indefinite contemplation status and recalled all their delegates. Even species that had supported the efficiency protocols were beginning to question their decision as their own. Systems failed and refugees flooded their borders. Ambassador Wan Jin Kim reviewed each diplomatic message from the old galaxy with careful attention. Desperate offers of trade agreements, technology exchanges, and even reparations for past decisions. But every message was filed in the diplomatic archives with the same response. The Alliance of Free Worlds welcomes any civilization that demonstrates a genuine commitment to the equal dignity of all sapient life. We await evidence of such commitment. The evacuation began during the Council's annual Prosperity Festival, when most delegates were distracted by 3 days of celebrations, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic parties. The timing was perfect. Nobody paid attention to routine maintenance and personnel transfers during the festival. Transport Coordinator Kyung-min Lee watched the massive operation unfold from the command center on Earth. Her screens showed the movement of hundreds of ships across the galaxy, all following carefully planned routes that appeared completely normal to outside observers. "Status on Sector 12, she asked. "Research Station Alpha 7 reports complete evacuation," came the reply. "All personnel and equipment transferred to Transport Group Charlie. Station automated systems are online and will maintain normal communications for 72 hours. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Every human installation had backup systems that could run automatically for days or weeks. To alien observers, the stations would appear to be functioning normally long after they were actually empty. Captain Woo Jin Lim guided his convoy of medical evacuation ships through the Kepler system. To traffic control, they looked like standard hospital transports responding to the galaxy-wide health emergency that Dr. So-Ra Park had declared. In reality, they were military vessels disguised with medical markings, capable of carrying thousands of people and massive amounts of equipment. The patients being evacuated included entire research teams, their families, and years' worth of scientific data. "Transport 7 to Convoy Leader," came a voice over the comm. "We've cleared the asteroid belt. No pursuit or unusual attention from System Patrol." "Acknowledged," Woo Jin replied. "Maintain medical emergency status and proceed to rendezvous point." On Tau Ceti Station, Engineer Byung-ho Na made his final rounds through the human-maintained sections. Every quantum computer, every fusion reactor, every piece of advanced technology contained the same hidden subroutine that would activate when he sent the final signal. His alien colleagues had grown accustomed to the humans' obsessive maintenance schedules. If Byung-ho said the gravity generators needed 3 weeks of adjustment, nobody questioned it. The humans were the best engineers in the galaxy. Everyone knew that. What they didn't know was that those same engineering skills included building backdoors into every system the humans had ever designed or repaired. "The atmospheric processors are running perfectly," commented Zektar, a reptilian engineer from the Saurian Collective. "Whatever upgrades you've been installing have improved efficiency by 12%. Byung-ho nodded absently. The upgrades were actually shutdown timers. In 30 days, the atmospheric processors would begin failing one by one. Not catastrophically. The humans weren't interested in murder, but slowly and irreversibly, forcing a complete evacuation of the station. Dr. Haiwan Yoon completed her final data transfer from the Xenobiology Laboratory. 20 years of collaborative research with 12 alien species, all carefully separated into human contributions and alien contributions. The aliens would keep everything they had discovered. But the human knowledge, genetic therapies that had saved millions of lives, agricultural techniques that had ended famine, medical treatments that had eliminated 6 major diseases, all of that was going with them. "I'll miss working with you," said Dr. Velnix, as he noticed her packing personal items. "Are you taking extended leave?" "Something like that," Hyeon replied with a sad smile. "I'll be doing field research for a while." It wasn't technically a lie. She would be doing research, just not in this galaxy. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Jin-Woo Kang attended his final session. The agenda was routine: trade disputes, cultural exchange programs, infrastructure funding. The same mundane business that kept galactic civilization running. He participated with his usual professionalism, never showing any sign that this would be the last time he sat in the assembly hall. When the session ended, he gathered his papers, shook hands with a few colleagues, and walked calmly to his office. On his desk, he left a single data tablet containing humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The message was brief and diplomatic. The Human Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All treaties, agreements, and cooperative ventures are hereby terminated. We bear no ill will toward any member species and wish the Council success in its future endeavors. That was it. No demands, no threats, no dramatic speeches. Just a simple statement of withdrawal. Ambassador Yujin Nam was already at the transport bay, along with the last of the embassy staff. Security footage would show them leaving with personal belongings over the past week. Nothing unusual about staff rotation and shore leave. Intelligence Officer Ga Young. Han sent the final activation signal from her ship as it cleared the station's docking bay. Across the galaxy, every piece of human technology began its shutdown sequence simultaneously. The effects wouldn't be immediately obvious. Quantum computers would still function for days before critical algorithms began corrupting. Fusion reactors would continue operating until safety protocols triggered automatic shutdowns. Life support systems would maintain themselves until backup power sources failed. By the time the aliens realized what was happening, the humans would be long gone. Admiral Hyun Soo-yu commanded the final phase from her flagship, the battlecruiser Sejong. Every human military vessel in the galaxy was converging on predetermined coordinates beyond the galactic rim. Final status. Report, she ordered. All evacuation zones report complete, came the response. From her operations officer, total personnel recovered. 4.7 million humans plus family members. All critical infrastructure has been stripped and relocated. And the installations? Automated systems are maintaining normal communications and operations. Estimated time before failures become apparent, 14 to 21 days. Hyun-soo nodded with satisfaction. The aliens would have over 2 weeks to prepare for the loss of human technology. No one could accuse humanity of leaving them defenseless. Captain Min Ho-jung piloted one of the last transports to leave human space, carrying refugees from the most remote research stations. These were the scientists and explorers who had dedicated their lives to expanding galactic knowledge. "Captain," called his navigator, "we're receiving a transmission from the Gilhai homeworld." The message was brief but heartbreaking. The Vorthak had begun early implementation of their efficiency protocol. Transports were already en route to the refugee camps. The Gilhai elder who had wept in the council chamber was among the first to be processed. Minho felt anger burn in his chest. They were doing the right thing by leaving, but it still felt like abandonment. President Jae-min-oh received the final confirmation in his office. Every human installation had been evacuated. Every piece of critical technology had been relocated or disabled. 60 years of human participation in galactic civilization was officially over. "Sir," his aide approached quietly, "the transport ships are ready for your departure." Jaemin looked out the window at the lights of Geneva, then at the holographic display showing Earth's position in the galaxy. Home would always be here, but humanity's future lay elsewhere. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Begin Phase 4. Admiral So-young Kim watched from her command ship as the massive convoy of human vessels moved in perfect formation toward their new home beyond the galactic boundary. Mobile cities, factory ships, research vessels, and military escorts, an entire civilization on the move. Behind them, the Milky Way continued its ancient rotation, unaware that it had just lost its most reliable partners. Dr. Won-sik Park supervised the final shutdown of humanity's most sensitive research facilities. The joint projects with alien species, the collaborative efforts that had advanced galactic science for decades, all coming to an end. "Are we making a mistake?" asked one of his junior researchers. Won-sik thought about the Gilhai elder, about the 12 million refugees facing efficiency protocols, about the casual way the council had voted for mass murder. "No," he said firmly, "we're choosing not to be complicit in genocide." As the last human ship crossed the galactic boundary, Transport Coordinator Kyung-min Lee began broadcasting the final message on all emergency frequencies. "This is the Human Federation Emergency Network. All humans in galactic space have been successfully evacuated. Any human personnel not yet contacted should proceed immediately to the coordinates being transmitted on this frequency. We are not abandoning you." The message repeated in 17 different languages, ensuring that even the most isolated human outposts would know they had a way home. The evacuation was complete. Now came the hard part, building a new civilization from scratch. Director Sumi Lee stood in the underground command center beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays that showed every human presence in the galaxy. The room hummed with quiet activity as dozens of officers monitored communications, tracked ship movements, and coordinated what would become the largest evacuation in human history. "Status report," Sumi called out, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were planning. "All assets confirmed and catalogued," replied Lieutenant Commander Dongwoo Kim from his station. 1,247 installations across 47 star systems. Everything from major colonies to single-person research outposts. Admiral Bo-Ram Choi approached the central table, carrying a thick folder marked with the highest security classifications. "Operation Clean Slate has been in development for 3 years," she explained to the assembled staff. "Every contingency has been planned. Every risk has been calculated. The plan was ambitious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Humanity would completely withdraw from galactic civilization without warning, taking with them every person, every piece of technology, and every scrap of scientific knowledge they had contributed over 60 years of membership." "How long do we have?" asked Captain Min Ho-jung, who had been recalled from his trade route specifically for this briefing. 30 days, Sumi replied. "The Vorthak begin their efficiency protocol in 30 days. We need to be gone before then." On Tau Ceti Station, engineer Byung-ho Na received what appeared to be routine maintenance orders. The quantum fusion reactor needed its quarterly inspection. The gravity generators required software updates. The atmospheric processors needed filter replacements. All perfectly normal requests that would take weeks to complete and require shutting down various station systems. Byung-ho had been expecting these orders for months. As he began the first shutdown sequence, his alien colleagues barely noticed. Humans were known for their obsession with preventive maintenance. If they wanted to spend 3 weeks tinkering with perfectly functional equipment, that was their business. What the aliens didn't know was that every piece of human-designed technology in the station contained hidden subroutines. When activated, these programs would begin a slow degradation process that would leave the equipment useless within a month of human departure. Dr. Hee-Won-yoon worked late into the night in her xenobiology laboratory on Kepler Station. To her alien research partners, it looked like she was simply backing up 20 years of collaborative research for standard security protocols. In reality, she was carefully extracting every piece of human-contributed knowledge from the shared databases. Genetic sequences that had taken decades to map, medical treatments that had saved millions of lives, agricultural techniques that had ended famine on 6 worlds. All of it was being quietly transferred to secured human databases, while leaving behind only the alien-contributed portions. Working late again, "Haiwan?" asked her Zephyrian colleague Dr. Velnix as he floated past her workstation. "Just updating the backup systems," she replied with a smile. "You know how paranoid we humans are about data security?" Velnix laughed, his gas-filled body shimmering with amusement. "Indeed, though I suppose that paranoia has served the galaxy well. Your backup protocols have saved our research from 3 different system failures." After he left, Haiwan continued her work with a heavy heart. Velnix was a good being and a brilliant scientist. She would miss their collaboration. But she couldn't be part of a system that voted for genocide and called it efficiency. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out at every human installation. Captain Woo Jin Lim received orders to conduct routine personnel rotations that would bring his merchant fleet to every human outpost over the next 4 weeks. Chief Medical Officer Sora Park issued a galaxy-wide health alert affecting only human physiology. A previously unknown genetic condition had been discovered that required immediate medical evaluation of all humans in space. The alert was completely fictional, but it provided perfect cover for the largest evacuation operation in galactic history. Transport Coordinator Kyung-min Lee orchestrated the movement of people and equipment with military precision. Every ship had specific routes, specific pickup points, specific cargo manifests. To outside observers, it looked like standard human efficiency in action. On the Galactic Council Station, Ambassador Jinwoo Kang continued his diplomatic duties as if nothing had changed. He attended committee meetings, filed routine reports, and participated in cultural exchange programs. What he didn't do was mention that the human embassy staff had been quietly leaving in small groups over the past 2 weeks. Maintenance workers, administrative assistants, security guards, all departing for various personal reasons. Family emergencies, medical leave, early retirement. Intelligence Officer Ga Young-han made her final preparations in the embassy's most secure room. Every piece of classified technology, every advanced sensor array, every quantum computer that other species had come to depend on contained the same hidden programming. When activated, the systems would begin an irreversible shutdown sequence, not an explosion or dramatic failure, just a gradual degradation that would render the equipment useless. The aliens would wake up one day to find that their most critical systems simply no longer worked. "Are you really going to do it?" asked Ambassador Yu-Jin Nam, who had been read into the operation only days earlier. "The council voted to murder 12 million innocents," Ga Young replied without looking up from her work. "We're not going to be part of that system anymore." President Jae-min-oh sat in his office in New Geneva, reviewing the final authorization documents. Once he signed them, there would be no turning back. Humanity would be cutting all ties with galactic civilization. "Sir?" His aide entered quietly. "The latest reports from the refugee camps." Jae-min read the documents in silence. Disease, starvation, violence. The Vorthak were already implementing preliminary efficiency measures before the official protocol began. Children were being separated from families. The elderly were being denied medical care. He signed the authorization with steady hands. Admiral Hyun Soo-yu received the final go code while reviewing deployment schedules for the human fleet. Every military vessel, every exploration ship, every civilian transport would participate in the operation. "Signal all commands," she ordered. "Operation Clean Slate is now active. All units are to proceed to their assigned coordinates immediately." On the edge of human space, massive construction projects that had been disguised as deep space research stations revealed their true purpose. Admiral So-young Kim watched as the final components of humanity's new mobile cities were installed. These weren't just ships or stations. They were entire communities designed to be completely self-sufficient. Manufacturing facilities, agricultural domes, research laboratories, schools, hospitals. Everything needed to support millions of people indefinitely. The aliens had always wondered why humans insisted on such redundant backup systems for everything. Now they would understand. Dr. Won-sik Park supervised the evacuation of humanity's most sensitive research facilities. Projects that the aliens assumed would continue indefinitely were being quietly shut down and relocated. The Joint Terraforming Project on Kepler Prime, the Stellar Cartography Center in the Vega system, the Xenoarchaeology Expedition in the Centauri Cluster, all being packed up and moved to locations beyond galactic borders. Captain Yuri Shin piloted the first transport convoy to leave the galaxy entirely. Her destination was a star cluster in the void between the Milky Way and Andromeda, where humanity had been secretly establishing new colonies for the past 5 years. "Final head count," she asked her navigation officer. "All personnel accounted for, Captain. 200,000 civilians and their families, plus complete manufacturing infrastructure for 3 different industries." As they crossed the galactic boundary, Yuri looked back at the spiral arms of the Milky Way. Somewhere in there, the Galactic Council continued its business, unaware that their most reliable partners were quietly disappearing. In 30 days, they would wake up to a very different galaxy. The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council stretched above Ambassador Jinwoo Kang like a frozen ocean. Sunlight from 3 different stars filtered through the transparent walls, casting rainbow patterns across the assembly floor, where 63 different species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. Jinwoo sat in the human section, his dark suit a stark contrast to the colorful robes and natural armor of his fellow delegates. He had been Earth's representative for 15 years, and in all that time, he had never felt as sick to his stomach as he did today. The speaker at the center podium was a Vorthak, a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis crossed with a spider. Its forearms gestured gracefully as it spoke in perfect standard galactic, its voice carrying the cold precision that made the Vorthak such effective administrators. "The refugee situation in Sector 47 has reached critical mass," the Vorthak delegate announced. "Current population levels exceed sustainable limits by 340%. Food riots have broken out on 6 worlds. Disease spreads unchecked through overcrowded camps." Colonel Mira Song, sitting beside Jinwoo, checked her tablet. The numbers were real. 12 million beings from 17 different species, all displaced by various wars and disasters over the past decade. They had been promised temporary shelter. That was 3 years ago. The hegemony of Vorthak has developed a comprehensive solution, the speaker continued. Implementation of Efficiency Protocol 7 will reduce resource consumption by 73% within 6 standard months. Dr. Sung-Ho Bae, Humanities Science Advisor, leaned forward. What exactly does Protocol 7 involve? He asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer. The Vorthak's compound eyes fixed on him. Systematic population reduction targeting non-productive demographic segments. Priority elimination includes disabled individuals, elderly past reproduction age, children with genetic defects, and adult males over 50 who lack technical skills. The words hit the assembly like ice water. Jinwoo felt his hands clench beneath the desk. Around the vast chamber, some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded with clinical approval. A Gilhai delegate rose from her section, her blue-scaled hands trembling. You're talking about murder. Mass murder of innocents. Correction, the Vorthak replied smoothly. We're discussing optimal resource allocation. Emotional attachment to inefficient population segments is precisely the kind of thinking that created this crisis. The Gilhai delegate's voice cracked. Those inefficient segments include my grandmother and my youngest son. Then you understand why objective analysis by uninvolved parties is necessary, the Vorthak said without any change in tone. Ambassador Yujin Nam, Humanities Deputy Representative, watched Jinwoo's face carefully. She had worked with him long enough to recognize the warning signs. His diplomatic mask was slipping. The Gilhai delegate tried to speak again, but Council Speaker Veltanan, a tall, crystalline being, cut her off. The emotional bias of affected parties has been noted for the record. We will now proceed to voting. This is insane, Jinwoo muttered under his breath. The voting began. Each species' name appeared on the massive display screen, followed by their choice. Green for approval, red for rejection, yellow for abstention. Vorthak hegemony, green, expected, Zephyrian Trade Consortium, green. They always sided with whoever had the most military power, Alteran Republic, red. Jinwoo felt a small surge of hope. Crystalline authority, yellow. The crystal beings never took sides on anything, one by one. The votes registered, green, green, yellow, red, green, green. Commander Inho Park, watching from the military observer section, felt his secure communicator vibrate. A message appeared on the tiny screen. Monitor vote count. Report immediately. The message came from the highest levels of Earth's government. As the voting continued, a clear pattern emerged. The powerful species voted green. The weak voted red. Those caught in the middle chose yellow, hoping to avoid making enemies. Dr. Sung-Ho Bae ran quick calculations on his tablet. At this rate, it'll pass by about 20 votes, he whispered to Jinwoo. The Gilhai delegation huddled together, their blue scales pale with fear. If this protocol passed, their entire species might not survive. The diseases ravaging the refugee camps hit Gilhai particularly hard due to their unique physiology. When Earth's turn came, Jinwoo stood slowly. The entire assembly turned to watch. Humanity was still considered newcomers after 60 years of membership. Their votes rarely mattered in the grand scheme of galactic politics. The Human Federation votes red, Jinwoo announced, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber. We formally object to this proposal on humanitarian grounds. A few species applauded politely. Most ignored it entirely. The Vorthak delegate's expression didn't change at all. The final tally appeared on the screen. 47 green, 16 red, 12 yellow efficiency protocol. 7 was approved. The Vorthak delegate thanked the assembly for their rational decision-making and announced that reduction operations would begin within 30 days. Transportation ships were already being prepared. As delegates began filing out, discussing lunch plans and afternoon meetings, the Gilhai delegation remained in their seats. Their eldest member, an ancient female with scars from a dozen wars, wept silently. Jinwoo walked over to them, ignoring diplomatic protocol. I'm sorry, he said simply. This isn't justice. The old Gilhai looked up at him with eyes like pools of starlight. Your species tried to help us. We won't forget that when the ships come. Back in the human section, Colonel Mira Song was already sending coded messages to Earth. The vote count, the species breakdown, the timeline for implementation, everything went into the encrypted data burst. Ambassador Yujin Nam gathered her papers slowly, her mind racing. "Jinwoo," she said quietly, "how many times is this now?" "Fifth major vote this year," he replied, loosening his tie. "Fifth time we've watched them vote for mass murder and call it efficiency." Dr. Shung-Ho Bei looked around the emptying chamber. "Do you think Earth knew this would happen?" Commander In-ho Park approached their group, his face grim. "I just received new orders. All human personnel are to report their exact locations and status immediately." Jinwoo frowned. "That's unusual." "Very unusual," In-ho agreed. The message came with Contingency Plan Alpha authorization codes. The humans exchanged glances. Alpha codes meant the highest possible security level. They were only used when Earth faced immediate existential threats. As they left the assembly hall, none of them noticed the small maintenance robots already beginning to scan and catalog every piece of human technology integrated into the station's systems. The robots worked efficiently and quietly, just as they had been programmed to do. In a secure office deep within the human embassy, Intelligence Officer Ga Young-han was busy destroying classified files and backing up sensitive data to quantum storage devices. She had been expecting her current orders for months. On Earth, President Jae Min-oh signed a document that would change the course of galactic history. The authorization was simple. Operation Clean Slate was now active. The Galactic Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs.